Now, it's no secret that the latest season of The Mandalorian could best be described as uneven in terms of writing quality. It certainly wasn't a perfect show, and there are plenty of people willing and able to point out its many flaws. But one thing that just about everyone seems able to agree on is that it was fucking awesome to see Luke Skywalker back in action again. And I mean the real Luke Skywalker, not this sad, miserable, pathetic old man that had turned his back on everything and everyone he'd once been willing to die for. In a time where entertainment is becoming increasingly divisive, destructive and disheartening, well, it felt like a rare moment of reconciliation where everyone could put aside their anger and petty grudges for 5 minutes and just enjoy a pretty awesome moment. It was a little reminder to everyone of why Star Wars used to mean so much to them, a little flicker of the fire that used to burn so brightly, and the response was overwhelming. In fact, this one moment was so popular that it actually crashed the Disney servers as fans desperately rushed to experience it. Just think about that for a moment. A 5-minute cameo appearance by a digitally recreated Luke Skywalker generated more excitement, goodwill, and sheer joy in Star Wars fans than a billion-dollar movie trilogy. But it also got me to thinking, why can't they do more of this stuff? And by that, I don't mean throwing in a bunch of shameless cash grab nostalgia baiting. I mean, for once, just recognising what the fans actually want and giving it to them. It's not all that hard to do, but whether or not it actually happens depends entirely on who has control of Star Wars. What we need is more writers and showrunners at Lucasfilm that treat iconic heroes of the past with the respect and reverence they deserve, instead of undoing 30 years of character development to turn them into deadbeat dads that get conveniently murdered just as they try to redeem themselves. Or deconstructing them into broken, useless failures just to gaslight fans into believing they were never that great to begin with. This kind of toxic, mean-spirited attitude to legacy characters, combined with a complete lack of talent needed to create new ones, or the ability to acknowledge failures even when they're literally staring you in the face, is exactly why people turned their back on this franchise in the first place. We need people who actually care for and respect the legacy of the universe they've been lucky enough to inherit. And this, I think, is the real point to take away from The Mandalorian. It's a show made by people who actually like and understand the appeal of Star Wars. People who respect George Lucas's artistic vision and want to carry it forward intact, instead of trying to break it down and remake it in their own image. See, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni represent a quiet reshuffling of the chain of command at Lucasfilm, a little experiment to see if they were ready for bigger things. They were brought in to create this show after the disaster of The Last Jedi, and for a while they kind of flew under the radar. Kathleen Kennedy certainly didn't care about them. She was still preoccupied with running her movie trilogy into the ground, and The Mandalorian probably seemed like an amusing little side project that nobody would take much notice of. But take notice they did. Wouldn't you know it? People tend to respond pretty well to shows that treat their favourite IP with respect and dignity, especially when they've spent the past few years being openly berated and shit on for daring to object to its destruction. Because of this, The Mandalorian went on to become a huge hit, reinvigorating a tired and jaded fan base and actually starting to win some people back. Damn, it's almost like being nice to your fans and giving them what they want is a good business model.
No way!
Not that you'd fucking know it based on how Lucasfilm have behaved over the past several years. The culture there seems to revolve around absolute contempt for anyone who disagrees with their new way of doing things. And I guess this brings me to the real point I want to make here. See, it's basically an open secret that there's a kind of civil war going on at Lucasfilm right now. On the one hand, there's Kathleen Kennedy and the people she hired based mostly on whether or not they agree with her political views. And on the other, there's Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and the people who just want to tell good Star Wars stories. And which side wins could pretty much determine whether Star Wars as a brand gets rescued or destroyed. The success of The Mandalorian might have been good news for Disney, because fuck me, they're not exactly swimming in cash right now. But it was overwhelmingly bad for Kathleen Kennedy, whose obsession with identity politics and increasingly incompetent management of the film division had practically sunk Star Wars. Her bosses at Disney had already lost faith in her and basically saw her as a useless pain in the arse that was too female to be fired and had to be endured until her contract ran out when they could finally shuffle her out the door. That was all humiliating enough. But now these two upstarts were basically doing her job for her, and doing it far better. The Mandalorian was a test for them, and it was one they passed with flying colours. Soon a whole slew of new TV projects were being announced. Who the fuck wants a Cassian Andor show? All overseen by Favreau and Filoni, with almost no input from Kennedy. Their growing success only served to shine a giant spotlight on her embarrassing failures. But hey, the Empire always finds a way to strike back. Like with the accidental leak about a female-centric Star Wars show in the works, written by the hardest of hardcore feminists, which basically promises to repeat the same exact mistakes that torpedoed the sequel trilogy. But this surprise announcement basically strong-armed Disney into greenlighting it, rather than suffer the negative PR of cancelling a show that ticks so many diversity boxes. What's an excellent way to get your show made? Well done. Or the less than exciting announcement of Star Wars The High Republic, a tie-in series of books and comics that used predatory sales practices to fudge its way to 100,000 pre-orders, most of which will probably end up in a fucking landfill if the character artwork is anything to go by. It all adds up to the same unpleasant cocktail of pandering, lecturing, box ticking, creatively bankrupt garbage that we've been force-fed for the past 5 years, shat out by people with absolutely no passion or respect for the source material. The kind of stuff that'll do nothing except stir up more division, resentment and animosity amongst the fan base. And I guess this brings me neatly back to Luke Skywalker and that little cameo at the end of The Mandalorian. Just in case I haven't made it clear already, this is what your fan base actually wants, Disney. They don't want to be lectured and berated by talentless ideologues who actively despise them. They don't want Star Wars to be some clumsy mirror for today's endless political wrangling and all the crap that comes with it. They don't want to see their favourite characters broken and sacrificed on the altar of postmodernist deconstruction. They just want Star Wars to be fucking fun again. They want to escape for a few hours to a galaxy far, far away, where they can find some good escapist entertainment and adventure, classic heroes they can root for, villains they can boo, and timeless stories that'll delight and inspire them like they once did. That is the appeal of Star Wars. That's always been the appeal. And maybe, when you're considering who to keep and who to cut loose, you should keep that one in mind. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.